I've started.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spirituality in Action call with today's special guest, Donna DeNomme. I'm Nanette Rogers-Kennedy here with my partner, Dee Meyer. We are co-coordinators of Humanities Team Spirituality in Action program. And for those of you that don't know, Humanities Team has over 100,000 teammates in over 150 countries. We would like to thank our donors especially for your support of Spirituality in Action. Without your in-kind donations and financial nurturings, we would not be able to do our work in the world. We have access to many extraordinary speakers. It is our great pleasure to share with you Donna DeNomme. She is bringing in new tools to create a life you will love through realizing your connection with your higher self, source, God, creation. We want you to be able to bring out the very best of you. Today we will be covering what is possible when you learn to make the connection with your higher self, when you can eliminate the inner voice that says you're not good enough and that unmistakable feeling of guilt for no reason. We are going to cover as much ground as we can during this call, and as Dee can attest, these calls always go so fast it's unbelievable. And we want to let you know where you can purchase Donna's book, The 8 Keys to Wholeness, Tools for Hope-Filled Healing. And you can go to Donna's site to get more information, which is www.wildsuccess4you.com, or you can go to Amazon or your favorite hometown bookseller. Now, Dee, I'm going to give it over to you, and you can introduce our guest.
Thanks, Nanette. I am super excited to introduce you to my friend Donna DeNomme. Donna is an insightful teacher, shamanic healer, ceremonial leader, and master success coach. Assisting others since 1987, she uses storytelling, art, writing, and integrative ritual to offer multidimensional empowerment programs. Donna loves to witness the wonder of separate individuals coming together and becoming a vibrant, integrated circle, fertile for personal healing and collective transformation. She is the award-winning, internationally published author of Turtle Wisdom, Coming Home to Yourself, and Ophelia's Oracle for Girls, the Turtle Wisdom Personal Illumination Cards, and the newly released 8 Keys to Wholeness, Tools for Hope-Filled Healing. I had the great pleasure of meeting Donna in Colorado late last fall after the floods. And Donna has just been a source of inspiration and hope and help for both my daughter and I. So welcome, Donna, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Dee and Annette. I appreciate being here today.
Well, we're so grateful that you could make time for us today in your busy schedule to help us and be a part of this interview.
Yes, thank you.
We'd like to invite you to lead a centering in process today as we start our call.
I would love to. And so just taking a nice deep breath from our bellies and releasing that breath. I know and declare, that this is such a glorious day, for as we gather with intention in circle, even when that circle reaches out around the globe. When we gather in circle, we come to this place of sacred inner self, connected to the great source of all there is. I know and declare that our time together is blessed, guided, insightful, and lots of fun. And from that place of acceptance and knowing, we easily move into the time that we have with great thanks. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you. Well, Donna, I love your work, and the 8 Keys to Wholeness is chock full of tools for living in oneness. You are a teacher showing us how to walk the path of personal integrity, also showing us how to tap into the wisdom of our bodies. How did you get on your path, and why are you so passionate about your work?
Well, that is just a great question to open with, Dee. I would say that I believe that I really officially stepped onto this path of assisting others and also my own personal exploration when I was a very young girl of 6, and I encountered an unusual trauma, and in that time of traumatic occurrence, for some reason, what really stands out is that I was connected with the other side of my spiritual guides, having a direct connection with our source, really knowing the way back and forth over that etheric bridge that I think is available and open to all of us. And at that time, these spiritual guides became really my inner counsel, who literally would show me the way from simple things like everyday life to very serious things like my survival at that time, my emotional and even physical survival. And so I was able to live through a time of very traumatic abuse in a way that allowed me to maintain a certain wholeness of my personality. And in fact, again, I'm very grateful for this, but I think that I was instructed in ways that maybe not everyone is in those kinds of horrible situations.
I first want to say that I can, to some degree, understand everything you just said from personal experience myself, and there is a definite gift in, if you can open your eyes to find the gift, is what I was going to say. And clearly from reading your book, you definitely found the gift. I wanted to, because the chakras are such a big part of the book, and not everybody is completely familiar with the significance of the chakras and the power for healing. Can you just kind of do a brief overview of the significance of the chakras?
Oh, yes. I think that's a wonderful thought. And, you know, I was surprised, I want to just say, I was surprised when the chakras presented themselves, because really that is what happened, as the container for this information. And I believe that part of why that happened is because the chakras are energy centers within our bodies, which have been spoken about, written about, taught about since ancient times. We find these writings in very old sacred writings explaining about these energy centers and how they connect with us individually and how they connect with us collectively, and how they can be used in a way that allows us to live more fully and in alignment with our soul essence, or the divine work that we have come here to do. And when I say the divine work, I don't necessarily mean what we do for our jobs. I also mean, you know, things like learning compassion, living through a challenge and surviving. These things are a part of that as well. So again, when I was writing this material, which I was in writing and research and editing for over 4 years with this particular book, and I actually went back to school and received a master's degree in engaged humanities with an emphasis in-depth psychology while I was writing this book, and that was really a big part of why I was able to pull it together. It actually got me writing when I had no intention to write. I think I was kind of led to it, really. And so as I was going through that process, and I speak about this in the very beginning of the book, the introduction, I was meditating deeply because the material that I was writing about was so personally challenging and difficult to put into words and to honor it by my words. And it was complete darkness, and I felt that I was in a very fearful place. Again, this was not a book I ever wanted to write where I acknowledged my own childhood abuse. And in that darkness came the rainbow. And as you know, Nanette, the chakras present themselves in these rainbow colors. And as I felt into the energy of the rainbow, which is such a wonderful shamanic symbol anyway, I realized that it was both about the rainbow warrior teachings that come through many traditions, about the fact that we will all rise up and come together in oneness regardless of where we come from and regardless of what tribe we are from. It was both relative to that and the healing that hopefully will contribute to that, and also to the personal chakra system and the need for the alignment of those chakras so that we can step forward in life in a better, fuller way and, again, accomplish what we've come here to do. And so the chakras became this container, and I think it works well in the book. I hope it does.
Well, I think it does, and I think this is a good time to interject for those that are listening that the book is not just about the chakras. It is a beautiful, well-told, raw story is intertwined with the information about the chakras. Having said that, I just want to ask you one more follow-up question about chakras. Is there a particular chakra that stands out in this time, today, this age, that needs to be addressed?
I think they all have relevance in different ways, but I also hear what you're asking. And for me, I believe the eighth key, which is actually a triad of chakras, is very significant and very important. And I would ask, I know that you like to have your guests do a meditation at some point. And later in our interview, I would love to walk us all through an experience of those three triad chakras and how they work together.
Beautiful, great. Recognizing and living from oneness is so important. And many, many people listening have an understanding of oneness to a degree. But there is this piece that's missing for many of us, and that is understanding the importance of self-love and appreciation. When we have the feeling that we are not good enough or not deserving, we really are not serving our destiny or our life's purpose. What can we do to find the origins of the negative beliefs and then find the gifts hidden within?
Oh, I so appreciate this question because it really speaks to the very heart of this book, 8 Keys to Wholeness, because I feel that we need to identify our stuck places, which often fall under this category of I'm not good enough or I don't deserve it. The fact is, whoever we are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing in your life, whatever is going on, you are good enough or you wouldn't be here. You know, we're all here for a purpose, and we all fit together like those significant puzzle pieces. Without any one of us, it's not a complete picture. And so, to me, part of the call of our times is to transform this sludge of our personalities, the places where we really don't feel complete with who we are, where we don't feel good enough. And I find that often those pieces are relative to some kind of wounding. It may not be something like a physical abuse or a sexual abuse. It may be something as simple as a teacher laughed at your poem and said, you know, you're not a very good writer. Or somebody rolled the eyes when you were sharing, you know, a gift that you created. And then people shut down these parts of themselves. And so in 8 Keys to Wholeness, we work with this chakra system within the body. We start from the very beginning, which is grounding into our sacred roots. And we draw forth, there's a lot of processes so that we can draw forth the pieces of ourself that aren't fully healed and bring them out and invite them to participate in a way that I hope is then, helps them in their evolution towards more of a wholeness, more of a fullness, contributing then to a sense of, I am good enough. I do deserve a good life. And also I can seize wild opportunities and go to an even greater space, something maybe that scares the heck out of me. You know, I think that as we go along, we more and more need to challenge ourselves with the next step, the next step, the next step, because life is an evolution, and our souls have come here to be more and more and more and more.
That's what I was wondering about is if we really get this piece, it's going to affect our abundance and our willingness to take a risk. And abundance, by abundance, I mean more than just money, but abundance of situations coming in, abundance of friends, abundance of everything joyful.
Yes. And I love that you put that term on it, Dee, because, I think those of us who are fully embracing life are so busy. Sometimes it's hard to have a moment to sit down and pause. And I was just saying this to a client the other day, a coaching client. I said, somewhere right now, even in this city, there are people sitting in chairs who are bored. And isn't it wonderful that that's not you? Because when we open up to the fullness of who we are, the things that we have to do are just infinite. You know, we will be done with life before we run out of ideas of how we can play here.
That's a very interesting line there. Well, I want to let everybody know that I've been very inspired by the 8 Keys to Wholeness, and there were several sentences that stood out for me, but I have one in particular that really spoke to me, and it was, let all of your experiences be recognized for the parts they play. No one thing becomes the single defining piece. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes. You know, to me, this is the sadness of the other side of some people's traumatic experiences, is that whatever happened, no matter how horrible it was, and even when it's an ongoing challenge such as an illness or a disability, no matter how challenging that is, if we become enmeshed or wallowing in or stuck in the muck of, oh, how horrible this is, we really do miss that point of the gems or the gifts that are hidden within. And I want to be clear, I am in no way minimizing the horror of what some people have to live through. And I recognize pain and, woundedness. And when I work with people, certainly we have to be there and be in it first. But what I'm saying is when you go 20 years later, or a lifetime in many cases, and that is the single most influential lens that you view your life through. And it limits you, and it holds you back, and it puts certain labels on you which are limiting. That, to me, is sad, because then that event has stolen your entire life. And I experienced this, I experienced this when I spoke to a group of divorcees. And I was actually leading a full-day workshop, which was embracing the heart of the beloved. And, of course, the first premise of embracing the heart of the beloved is embracing yourself as beloved. And we broke for lunch, and I went to the restroom, and a woman followed me in, and she literally cornered me in the restroom in this little tiny corner, and she's in front of me, and she's very animated, and she's talking to me about her experience with her husband, and her arms are flailing all around, and she ends by saying, "And I will never love again." And I say, oh my, how long ago was that? Thinking it was last week, last month, last year. And she responds by saying, that was over 20 years ago. Sad.
It's very, very sad. And I think to some degree we've all been through circumstances where when you're standing in the fire of the circumstance, that you can have those thoughts very naturally that, as you said, you're not saying in any way that people won't be grieving for the situation or have to go through some things. But your book, I think, gives hope to that that's not the way it has to be.
Well, no, and of course we must grieve. That is also part of the 8 keys to wholeness, is we go back and reclaim those parts of us maybe that we've pushed aside or rejected or not wanted to be identified as. I'm sure that you noticed that I spoke to the fact that I never wanted to be called a victim, ever. And then through my exploration and research, found out that, in fact, I completely fit the definition of victim, and that by rejecting that term, I was actually rejecting what I saw as the weaker part of myself, and that I needed to embrace her and hold her and cradle her, and that was the very least that she deserved from me.
I have a comment and another follow-up question, but the comment is, I know from an experience I had, this is leading into my question, and the question is, life circumstances have broken many people to the point where we no longer see our greatness. And 20 years ago, I was eyewitness to a suicide, and I remember vividly thinking, how am I going to get to the other side of this? And for about a year, and there's probably to this day not a day that goes by that I don't think about it, but I don't define myself as being that person who witnessed that. But can you share with us ways for people to open up to their greatest potential?
Yes, and this is not a simple answer, and I think it's different for each of us and each situation, which I think is really the beauty of working with a caring professional practitioner or coach to process this information. You know, as I listen to your personal story, which is just remarkable in so many ways to have encountered that and lived through that, I start getting a lot of information that I think would be for you individually, and so I'm kind of filtering that. What I feel is you just need to be open to the curiosity of, okay, what was this? And what is the meaning of this? Because there always is a meaning. And sometimes it may be very elusive and it may be hard to see, you know, and in some cases it's not something that we want to easily look at. But there always is information, and if we can just pull forward the threads of the information that is apparent, usually then deeper threads will surface. And it is that peeling of the layers to get to what is the heart, you know, underneath each of our challenges, each of our wounds. And it's not that we get stuck in the processing either. I want to be clear about that, you know, because I know people complain about the field of psychology for that reason. I've always been very pragmatic and practical in the way that I work with people. But I think that we are so busy in our lives that we just, you know, sort of rush by it and don't stop to be with the greatness of these situations. Because, and I keep wanting to say this to you, Nanette, is that as horrible as that is, the first thing that came to mind when you were sharing your personal story is, oh my gosh, the enormity of who you are, that you would be chosen to be there at that particular moment with that particular soul. You know, and so I do think that there's something precious and unique to you in that experience.
Well, it's interesting that you said what you said, because I also am pretty pragmatic about if I decide I need to be in counseling, and I did go into counseling. But I need to say also that it was 10 years and I had this major epiphany, and that gift finally revealed itself to me. And I was standing in the middle of Colorado State University campus, and it was like somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I realized that I was chosen to be there because this man was afraid to die alone. And it really was a tremendous stop point for me questioning, why did I have to be there? You know, why did this have to happen to me, which is the victim thinking. So I couldn't agree more with everything you just said, and thank you for your input on that.
Well, and in some way, that experience has led to the enormity of the way in which you show up in the world now, because, again, I don't want to, you know, minimize the horror of what happened when somebody takes their own life. But the fact that you could be there to midwife that then adds to this piece of you being able to work in such a big way in the world, helping to midwife souls into the next level of their beingness. You know, so it's in a way it's really a part and a contribution to that.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I think that's really important for everybody to hear. And then my last follow-up is, would you talk about, since we're talking a little bit about the victim thing, Would you talk about moving from the feeling of being a victim to the strength of knowing that we are not defined by those experiences?
Yes, and this again is going to be two-sided, as most things are, because on the one hand, we need to move from being identified as I am a victim or I was victimized in my life, and that is the identity that I claim, moving from that to a place of recognizing that this was one experience in all of our experiences, and they all matter, and they all lead us to be the person that we are. That's on the one side. But on the other side, which was, the person that I did not identify as a victim, and yet then there's all this material that's been left in the past that is usable, that is valuable, that is precious, and that is not fully integrated into, the person. And so it really holds us back from becoming our actualized self, or our wholeness is not available to us as long as we keep these fragmented pieces at bay. And again, I feel like that's the call of our times, is really to fully weave the parts of us into the whole tapestry of our personality so that we can show up and meet each other in the fullness of our being. And how you do that, again, I feel like the first step is recognizing the need to do it, and certainly working with a professional is one way, but even reading a book such as 8 Keys to Wholeness or other books that are on the market that speak to this kind of work, a person can do a lot with themselves and their journal. They can do a lot with themselves and their morning meditation when the spiritual source speaks to them directly and encourages them in their day. They can do a lot through their actions and the ways in which they change their behavior to express a new way. For me, it was very difficult to say, people knew that I had experienced some kind of abuse in my childhood, but when my first book, Turtle Wisdom, came out, I spent literally 5 months playing with my bio to come up with a way that I could acknowledge it without really saying what it was, because I was abused sexually on the altar in the Catholic Church. And, that's been it's still hard. In this moment, my heart is pounding because I just said that out loud to you. And yet I have to say, in the interesting way that things are, we know that our peace always makes a difference. And literally the day after I sent this book to press, the news flash was, UN holds the Vatican accountable. And, in no way do I think I directly influenced that, but I absolutely believe that I was one more person speaking my truth, and that helped to tip the scales of balance for things, to come to this head. And it's been very different ever since then. Public support is much more with the victim than it was prior to that. Mm-hmm. And in years past, I've literally had people within the church, nuns and priests who are still within the church, who just burst out crying when they thought about me speaking about this, not because they were concerned for the church, but because they were concerned for me and the backlash that I might experience if I ever spoke about this.
Absolutely. So, Don, would you like to read Let Me Tell You a Story, or would you rather skip that and move on?
Well, I think that was such an interesting question that you posed, to read that. And I think I would like to read it. And,
Great.
I want to let you know that even though you sent me that question so that I had a little, prior knowledge that might happen, I purposely did not read this story because I wanted to be in the authenticity of this moment, returning to it. And this came forth. Laura Sims is an internationally known storyteller. She's really amazing. She does remarkable work in war-torn countries with helping kids especially put their stories into words of really the difficult situations that they've been in. And I had no intention of writing this story, but it just spilled out in the morning during this workshop, and here it is. So let me tell you a story. There once was a girl who was young and fresh and curious. She loved the adventure of life. When she was about waist high, about 6 years old, she left the safety of her home and began to explore the world around her. Not long after, while she was still so fresh and new, the little girl was entrusted to people who cared for her during 2 long days. But these people were not what they seemed to be. Unbeknownst to her parents, these people hurt the little girl. They hurt her in ways which tore her skin. They hurt her in ways which strained her muscles. They hurt her in ways which ached her bones. They hurt her in ways which went deep down into the teeny tiny places within her sweet heart. And that is where the pain lived, sleeping for a very long time. But there is another part of this story. Because when the hurt girl lay crumbled, trembling on hard, cold steps, and feeling very alone, a candle said, "Come to my flame. Let me warm your chilled bones and soothe your pain." And when the girl had been pinned by a very heavy weight upon her small body, she smelled dirt right next to her face. And the dirt said, "Don't worry, I will hold you up." And as her young tears fell upon a rock, the rock said, "I feel your pain." And another time, when the girl was being hurt, a magnificent bird with the softest wings came to her and said, "Climb upon my back and hold on. I will take you far, far away to the gentle mountain who knows how to heal all things." And together they flew into the distant horizon. So even though the little girl was very hurt, she never felt completely alone again. Now, this girl's story is not something that you would yell over to your neighbor across the fence. It is not a story that you would tell your friend over tea. It is not a story you would whisper to your children at bedtime. The girl's story was unspeakable. Yet, as the still curious girl grew, she traveled far and wide, and she found a clan who knew the ways of the earth and the rocks and even the fire. They understood the meaning of one's tears. A very old man with wisdom as long as his beard gave the girl her true name, Wakanyapi Makawichanapi, Earth Star Rising. And one day, Wakanyapi Makawichanapi, Earth Star Rising, felt something rumble in her belly, grrr, like a giant force ready to explode. And one day, Wakanyapi Makawichanapi, Earth Star Rising, felt something move within her heart, and the pain that had been sleeping for a very long time began to stretch and yawn. And one day, Wakinyapi Maka Wichanapi felt something tingle in the place between her heart and her throat, her high heart, the place where the compassion of one's heart begins to move into form. She felt something tingle there, and then she knew, as she saw two white birds point their beaks upward and move up and through her throat until they popped out her mouth and flew to freedom. Your wound has become your strength, a strong yet gentle voice said, and that is how I come to tell you this story today.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We all have had hurts in our lives, and not to the degree that you went through as a young girl, but these are oftentimes secret wounds that we've been carrying from childhood and teen years. How do we start to deal with this work?
The very first step is to be with it yourself in a way that is that self-acceptance, to recognize that it is a piece of you. It may not be the defining piece, but it is a piece of you. The next step, I believe, is to speak about it in ways and places that are safe, with people who can hear you and sit with you in the fullness of your wound without belittling it or talking about what happened to them instead of you, because no matter, as you say, Dee, we all have these wounds, and these wounds, you know, it's not like a competition. Everyone's pain matters. It's not like, is your boo-boo bigger than my boo-boo? You know, they're all wounds, and they all deserve our attention. At the same time, again, there is that balance of not getting stuck in them. And so sometimes we have someone who's been telling the same story for the past 20 years, like the woman who cornered me in the bathroom. For somebody like that, it's another kind of tough love, which is, okay, take a breath, and it's now time to begin moving through that because it's not serving you to remain stuck in it.
Well, thank you for reading So Let Me Tell You Story aloud. I really love that. It's a beautiful story.
Well, and it acknowledges the importance in my healing of what I call shamanic wisdom, which came from many indigenous teachings. I studied with holy people and shamans over a period of 40 years, and it really, there's a lot of that understanding in this book, and I honor my teachers and my lineages in that way.
Mm. I was going to ask you, because it was so beautifully written, and it just brought to mind Maya Angelou's "When the Caged Bird Sings" with the imagery that you used, and I just thank you for reading it. It was very beautifully written. And
although I love Maya Angelou, you know, I've never read that. And I attribute, you know, this came out exactly as I had read it. Really, I think I changed one or two words to match the tense, but it spilled out exactly that way. And I really attribute this to the phenomenal container. Since I teach workshops also, I know how that is. You know, Laura Sims just created this beautiful space for us during this weekend, and I accessed that place of wounding in a way that I actually had never quite done before in a public setting within a group. And in fact, when I was reporting in and I said I wrote a story in my journal this morning, she asked me to read it, and I had such a hard time reading that the first time through that she had me pause, and she invited all the people in the group, and it was a very small group. I think there were 10 people or something, 8 or 10 people. But they all gathered around me in a very close circle. I could literally hear their breath. And I shared it, and at times I was sobbing so loudly that we had to, pause as I gathered myself. And I'm also not a person who normally cries, never mind cries in public. That was part of my aftermath of what had happened to me. I stopped crying. And so here I am in the middle of this group, and I'm sobbing uncontrollably and reading this. And then Laura did something quite remarkable. At the end of my words, she looked around the group, and she asked somebody who she knew I had gotten really close to during the weekend to begin by telling me my story back to me. And the woman started to speak, and when she couldn't go any further, someone else picked it up, and then someone else, and then someone else. And the contrast of the female voices with the masculine voices telling me my story, in most cases, word for word, they had remembered it. I just can't even describe what that did. I really attribute it, again, as the single most important thing externally in my healing process, because I felt like I had been heard, accepted, and reflected by this group. It was just beautiful. Mm-hmm. Laura Sims. She's out of New York City.
That sounds like a very healing thing for us all to keep in mind, because we will know that we've been heard. I want to get to this question. In the 8 Keys to Wholeness, you write about reclaiming the altar. What does reclaiming the altar mean, and how do we start that, or how did you start that?
Well, and this really grew out of the fact that my wounding was in a religious setting, which I believe really brings a different component sometimes to our abuse or wounding. And yet I believe that this is relevant for all of us. In fact, yesterday I spoke with a business group and feel that even in corporate America, this has relevance, which is recognizing that there is no church or doctrine or sacred place outside of ourselves that is more important than the sacred spot, the holy altar that we carry inside of us. And it goes everywhere we go, and it's available in any moment. As we demonstrated at the beginning of this call, in a breath, you can be there. It is the essence that moves through your very heartbeat to all parts of your body. It's in your bones. It's your divine inheritance as a child of Source, as a child of the universe, of Spirit, of the great Creator. You are this spiritual essence coming into form, and that in itself is sacred. And so this key is actually, a particular key. It relates to the third eye chakra, where you draw in your inspiration, your wisdom, your higher truth. And again, it's something that is available to all of us in any given moment.
You bring so many powerful questions to us in your book. Can you describe how we can use the 8 keys to wholeness, how we can use the questions that you provided to help begin our personal journeys?
Well, what would it be like if we just go into a very brief focus on that triad of chakras that I promised earlier?
You bet. Let's do that.
If we had more time, we actually could do a focus just on the 8th key, and I could do a lot of teaching around each piece of that. But because of our limit here, let me just talk us through it, okay?
Great, please.
Wonderful. And so I ask everyone present to these words, if you can focus on an aspect of your personality which has been wounded, an aspect of your personality that still holds some of the intensity of whatever it is that happened to you. Or perhaps this can also be something that is a limitation that is holding you back. So it may not be actually a wound that you have in mind, but perhaps something to do with not being good enough or not deserving, or a limitation because you're afraid to step out in a new and bigger way. I would like you to imagine that you invite that piece of you present right now, and you draw it to the place in your body, your solar plexus, and actually create a little container with your hands that cradles that which you brought up in your hands in front of your body at your solar plexus. And since we're there, I would like you to imagine that there is some of your own beautiful, compassionate, loving heart essence that spills out onto whatever this is and just seasons it a bit, cradles it a bit in your own hands. Now, in your next breath, imagine your awareness moving down your physical body and out the very soles of your feet, and see yourself standing on the green earth or the brown earth or even the white earth. If it's the white earth, it's the perfect temperature. Imagine yourself seeing those roots from the very soles of your feet, moving deeply into the earth below you, going far beneath you. And somewhere, a foot or two down, you encounter the Earth Star Chakra. And the Earth Star Chakra holds you every day in every way, connected to Gaia, the Mother. It feeds you with vital life force energy. It connects you with your earth-born reality, and it also holds a divine responsibility to be an earth guardian and to support her in whatever way you can. And you once again move in the other direction now, up from this Earth Star Chakra, gathering the force that's there that supports you, moving up through your knees and your thighs, moving up past that solar plexus that cradles your wound or limitation. And just pause there for a moment as you mingle those energies. And the Earth Star Chakra blesses and activates the energy with your wound or your limitation. And move up further now through the heart, pausing before you get to the throat, about midway, in the area of the high heart, which is the place of knowing, compassion, mercy, love, unconditional love, truth. And pause there for a moment as you gather that loving energy for yourself. Continue to move up through your physical body, past your mouth and your eyes, and the brow where the third eye is, up through the crown, continuing a foot or two above the body as you connect with the soul star chakra. And this is the place where you connect with the angels, the guides, the helper beings, your mentors for life. It is the heavenly realm where you can access true insight, understanding, and acceptance for all that happens to you. It is also the place of your divine inheritance, the gifts, the challenges, which are also gifts, the mission that is yours uniquely to do in our world. Gather the energy there, and in your next breath, move down, down, through the crown, the third eye, your throat, gently connecting with the high heart, moving into the heart and through to your hands, which cradle your wound or limitation. And season that with all that you have gathered from the high heart and the soul star chakra, activating it and expanding it to more of what it can be in its truest essence, in its fullest being. Knowing you are loved, accepted, and blessed, the entirety of who you are, including, and today especially, for this part of you.
Beautiful.
And now just move those hands into some part of your body, wherever you're inclined to connect them. Connect them and allow that which we have done there to actually enter your body, enter your form, and become a part of you, integrated into the wholeness of who you are.
Oh, this hour just went by so fast. We knew it
always does.
Oh, thank you so much for being with us today, Donna.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure to be here, really.
Very powerful and very insightful.
Do you want to quickly share how people can find you again?
Well, they can go to my website, www.wildsuccessforyou. There's information there about the books, the speaking that I do, some older information about workshops. As I shared with you, I'm right now in the process of reworking my website. We are launching online courses in the fall. There is a retreat up in Grand Lake, Colorado in August 22nd through the 24th. There's a little bit of information up there, and there's also a button where people can connect with me. So I'd love to hear from anybody who would like to have direct connection. And I so appreciate both of you, your insightful questions, and your loving space today.
Thank you. Well, I'm thinking that what we wanted to do is just make a couple of quick announcements, and again thank Donna DeNomme for a beautiful interview. And we want to remember that Global Oneness Day is October 24th. Please mark your calendar. And through our correspondences from Humanities Team, you will learn about upcoming calls that are going to be happening. And to remind everybody that the Humanities Team Global Council is off to South Africa here in a very short few days to honor Nelson Mandela posthumously and bestow him with our Spiritual Leadership Award. So those are some pretty big things that are coming up right now. Dee, can you think of anything else?
Nope, it's just been a delightful hour. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Nanette. I've so enjoyed it.
I agree.
We'll have to have Donna back soon.
Yes, because there's a few questions we would have liked to have gotten to. All right, thank you, everybody, and we'll send out an email with the pertinent information for this interview. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.